Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Doom Patrol Season 4, Episode 11. A great episode, the penultimate episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Potentially our last timey-wiminess in Doom Patrol. Who knows what the series finale is going to have for the sword for us, but this might be, if it's not our last timey-wiminess, there might be some in the final episode, but it feels like this might be our final timey-wimey adventure. But yeah, like everyone's stuck in, the time stream, and now they end up dividing up because each one of them goes, well, Larry and Jane go in one, Laura goes in another one, and Cliff goes in a different one, and you have Vic staying behind to be the hub that they all come back to, because it's like, right, this is our chance, three-way chance to get this longevity, to save Rita, to save all of us, because we're going to need our longevity if we're going to go back and deal with not only saving Rita, but also the horde of butts, and also Immortus. So, and I love that we do have Timothy Dalton returning. It feels very poetic for you. Made one final appearance. Not just him. We get Mark Sheppard back as well, so that's pretty dope. But yeah, like I love that. I think it's so interesting. Out of the three adventures, three separate like time periods. Larry, Laura, yeah, they're the only ones who don't interact with Niles directly. Because to be fair, in that time frame, in 96, that's where Larry and Jane are. Jane interacts with the chief, but not him. So I thought that was interesting. He ends up interacting with the negative spirit at that time. So let's break every story down. Let's start off with Larry's circumstances really quickly. So, Keeg interacts with the negative spirit, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is your, yeah, Keeg, that's your dad. I don't care if you do like him or whatever, and the negative spirit possesses Larry and tries to, and talks through him. I guess the reason why, because even Larry's like, whoa, you can do that? I guess it's never done that until now, because Larry's never really been strong enough to handle it, and this is also a very special circumstance of like, okay, so it's about, I gotta live long enough to protect Keeg. I even loved Larry saying like, right, the reason why I was pissed at you leaving wasn't necessarily just because you left, because you gave me a second chance at fatherhood, But that's the problem now. It's like, I feel like I'm failing on this set, because he's supposed to be trying to save Rita right now, but I'm trying to like push that aside right now just to protect Keeg, which is it's so interesting. It's like they all went on this mission for very specific purposes, and they ended up growing from it. I mean, that's what happens to this team every season, is just like you kind of go into this with one intention and ended up coming out of it a better person, or growing or learning something more. And in Larry's case, he learned because Keeg interacts with the negative spirit, and it's like, right, you're not going to fly into the sun just to die. You are going to become a new sun. And like, whoa, like, what is that? Why would I do that? It's like, I guess you have to do that because maybe that has to deal with your circumstances, or it's a necessary situation to beat Immortus. Maybe that's what it is. Who knows? But it's like, I guess that's how Keeg could survive. It's like, Keeg having a place, a home, is you forever being wrapped up in this like perpetual star that or sun that you're going to create type of situation. Maybe that's also how Keeg survives. Like, maybe it's a situation where the sun goes out, and it's like humanity needs a new sun, and they become the new sun. I could see that potentially being what ends up transpiring, maybe. But it's like, I thought that was so interesting because the negative spirit, it's like, you are stronger than my Larry, than this Larry of 96, but your fear is also getting to Keeg. It's like, as long as you are like drowning in your fear, if you refuse to let go of that fear, Keeg is always going to be afraid too. You have to be, I think it is that situation, because fear has driven a lot of Larry's decisions. I mean, to be fair, fear's driven a lot of their decisions, but I think it's even more so in Larry's case. His fear of, his sexuality and what that meant for his family, and then the fear of abandoning his kids and how they turned out and feeling like he failed them, and this was his second chance and he didn't want to screw up this second chance, and now he feels like he is, and that fear has always been the fear, he has never fully conquered his fear. I don't think. I think he's always made progress, but I don't think he's ever fully conquered it. And I think this will be his moment to finally fully conquer it. Because his fear's always shifted over to something else. And he's fought one battle, but then another battle of fear pops up and he just tries to fight them. But this is his latest battle. And I think him conquering it is what's going to make things happen. But that's my running theory currently, is that he'll become a sun, because maybe Immortus will destroy the sun and try to kill humanity, and Keeg and Larry have to become the new sun type of situation. Maybe we'll see how that all ends up playing out. Staying in 96, there was the whole conversation of, hey, should we tell Cliff about Clara being alive? It's yeah, but we only have an hour and we got to save Rita. And, it is kind of sad because Larry was like, yeah, this is where the chief lied to him about his family's death. So he spent, from 96 to 2004, staring out the window. Which I think I remember us seeing a bit of that montage a little bit at the beginning of the series when Cliff first kind of awoken as Robot Man. What I also thought was interesting, and maybe this was always a thing and I just never realized it, when Jane goes and sees all those videotapes, she ends up, there's so many that are okay, you have one tape for a lot of the other personalities. It's actually been so long, I forget how, I know some have died at this point, but it's 64 including Jane, right? I can't remember. I also don't know if that includes K or not. I think it's minus K, but I think that includes Jane. It's 64, or is it 63? I don't remember. But I was maybe I noticed that before, but I didn't remember that detail. Maybe it's just been so long and I've just never noticed that. I feel like I also don't remember. Maybe it's because I don't remember the earlier seasons as well, but I'm I don't remember them ever focusing on the fact is that Jane's the only one he ended up interviewing multiple times. To be fair, it's 96, so maybe that, there's a time, well, she was out of the house too for a while, so it also makes sense. But there's a lot of those that were just this is a one-time interview with each of the personalities, except for Jane. Hers are the ones with multiple numbers. Obviously with Driver 8 being an exception, but obviously it's part of the name, but I think Jane's the one that was interviewed multiple times. Maybe the others were too. I'm sure Niles was only really, Jane's the one that pops up the most because she's the current primary after Miranda. And I guess he was probably just trying to catalog all the different personalities, so he talked to each one of them at least once. Maybe. Like I said, it's most likely a situation of, they probably did interview the other ones, but I just happened to notice Jane had the most. But either way, Niles and Jane end up talking, and Niles can't help her with the longevity situation, because maybe by this point it's already kind of being used and it's being done, especially what we find out later on, but timeline, because it's all happening at the same time, but it's timeline wise it already happened, but everything with Cliff's side of things, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But at least with Jane, he can at least try and help her, figure things out. And I love that he takes the potion from Kip that's supposed to erase his memory. I guess, it makes you wonder, why did Kip give that to him in the first place? It's we know they ran into it in the 40s because of the whole Cliff situation, but he would have wiped his own memories as well. You don't need to know about the future and stuff like that. So not unless Kip kept most of his memories just to remember, hey, I need to keep this around in case someone else from the future comes to visit Niles. I don't know. Maybe it's just a precaution that he was I don't know why I have this. I have some gaps in my memory. I must have erased my memory. All right, it had to be for Niles reasons. All right, you might as well keep this Niles just in case. But either way, Jane and Niles had this really interesting conversation about, once again, she's been feeling so purposeless because she wants peace, but Niles was kind of maybe you'll never be able to find true peace because you've always done what you've like, it's always been about survival for you, and maybe that's true peace isn't possible for you. Because she said like, maybe like the fact is that I've helped even the nut jobs in this house, I've actually helped them as well. And it's like, well, maybe by extension, they are a bit of that purpose, that once you kind of let that like all out, that maybe you'll find out what you're going to do next. Figure yourself out, because for Jane, she was just tired of herself, just tired of being herself, and once again having to figure everything out and just the role she was in. And it is that situation where surviving is fine and dandy, but it gets to a point where you have to do more than just survive. And she wants to do more than survive. She's trying to figure out what her purpose is. Now that the others are gone, she doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to figure out this puzzle. And, you know, Niall starts suggesting like, right, well, what if it's about Kay? And it's like, you know, it's like, right, she went through what she went through. She's the one that actually went through it. Maybe you should only be caring about Kay's piece. And then, like, we get you say it. And then the other personalities, including Kay, show up. And then Kay touches her and it's like, it's okay, and say it. And Jane finally said, it never crossed my mind that this is what they were telling her to say. And for her, it's like, no, it didn't just happen to Kay. It happened to me. It happened to all of us. And she was like, I was raped by my dad. I was like, holy shit. It's about accepting that it isn't just Kay's trauma that they're meant to protect her from. They all went through that. For Jane, it's like, I remember when we were all made, and that was like kind of one of our first memories, because it wasn't just Kay's trauma and pain. That didn't just happen to her, that happened to all of us. Because this isn't just, and I think that's that important thing of like, this isn't just about like Kay and like, oh, the personas. It's about all of us. And in that moment, it's this beautiful moment of her putting the puzzle together, and it kind of gets super trippy, and she ends up in the underground where all of the other personalities are waiting, and Kay tells her to come along, and on the train they're leaving and the underground is crumbling. I was like, because they don't need it anymore. And Kay's like, let me show you what I've been working on. And I was like, oh, that's so like cathartic and beautiful. It, you know? So I guess because the entire time, like, Jane's always been like, it happened to Kay. They've all just kind of accepted it. Oh, it happened to Kay. I wonder, did the other personalities come to that realization, and it came down to Jane to be the final piece of the puzzle? Because what happened, the entire puzzle was together, and then Jane slotted in her piece. And that's when it all came together. I think maybe that's why the others disappeared, because they came to that realization along with Kay that it isn't just her, like, this is all of them. You know, they aren't just the separate individuals, which now part of me was wondering, like, if they're all together as one, as Jane kind of puts it at the end, we're the kaleidoscope, then I'm like, does that mean that Jane doesn't have to switch to use those abilities? That Jane's got all the limiters removed, and it's like, going forward, like, I can use Hammerhead's abilities or Flint's abilities or whatever the case may be, no longer having to shift between them just to use them. And maybe it's like, going forward, like, maybe Jane will like aesthetically change, you know, just like she had, well, the body will aesthetically change depending on which personalities in the driver's seat, but maybe it'll be a situation of Jane will still be in the driver's seat, but it'll just be like being able to use the powers. Or is it going to be a thing of, like I said, because she just now used all the powers all at once. It's going to be interesting to see, because even Jane's like, I have no idea what this kaleidoscope thing fully means. She's trying to figure it out on her own. So I thought that was beautiful progression for her story as well. Let's go to the Cliff situation. He ends up in the 40s after Niles ended up stealing the longevity. He's there with Kip. And he ends up running into Cliff, and it's like, it feels very poetic that Cliff would run into him, and it's like, yeah, I'm your creation, and I hate you because I know everything that you've done. But for Cliff, it's like he hasn't done those things yet. I think it's interesting. It's like an interesting parallel between that particular Niles and Laura's conversation with herself. Kind of, because they're roughly around the same, because they're both in, like, Laura's situation ends up taking her to the farm in the 40s, and that's set in the 40s with Cliff as well. So I thought that was so interesting. But it's like, yeah, like, you did this to me. You've made so many people suffer. So I need to go back and help fix the wrongs you made. And it's like, we're not pals. But the fact of the matter is, I do understand where you're coming from. You wanted to live one more day longer for Dorothy, but hey, you're gone in the future, but your kid, she's great. She's out there living her life. She's growing, in fact. And the fact of the matter is, she actually has friends. So your kid's kind of better off without you. But it's also like, I understand. Like, the fact of the matter is, I would do anything for just a few more crumbs to be able to stay. You know, I'm a grandfather now, and to be able to see Rory grow just a little bit long, just a little crumbs, that's all I would ask for. I get it. I get wanting to live a little bit longer for someone you care about. But for Cliff, it's like, you owe me. After everything you put me through, everything you've done, you owe me in particular for this. And so I love that Kip tries to use his magic and to stop him. He's like, oh, like, good luck on that, buddy. This is just a Monday for me because I have Parkinson's, so me not being able to move is something new. But good luck trying to get this dick out of my hand, because he's grasped onto Niles. I also love that, like, two of those axe-wielding electro dudes show up. Dudes with electro axes, and it's like, well, you gave me one weakness. I'm a brain surrounded by liquid, surrounded by metal. So yeah, electricity is my weakness. Niles kills one, and then like Cliff like power kicks the other one, but gets stuck in that position. Kip ends up like killing the other one, but that's not before Cliff ended up trying to protect Niles, because it's like, well, I need you to survive because I can't have you dying right now because I'll screw everything up. He ends up tossing him against the bar and breaking his back. I was like, shut the fuck up. Cliff is the reason why he got paralyzed? Oh my God. It's like, the timey-wiminess of like, that's so interesting. It makes you wonder, does that mean like, because there's no way like Niles remembers everything for the future. So Kip had to have erased his memories, but I was about to say, like, that's the heartbreaking thing of like, I mean, it's a culmination of just like, yes, like Cliff is held. I mean, they've all still hated him, but like Cliff is the one who still goes, fuck the chief. They all had that sentimentality, but he's the one that like harbors it the most. And so for him, it's just like, fuck, like, how could this happen? It's like, why did this happen? I didn't mean to. It's like, you're the one who paralyzed him in the first place. That stings a little. It's not even like a, well, you deserve it type of thing. He kind of does, but it also is just like, shit, I'm the one that did this to him? Like, no. Like, it's almost like, because I think on some level for Cliff, it's almost like, well, shit, like, he might not remember it, but maybe that's why, like, I almost deserve this. Like, I end up being the one that cripples him, and now later on he does what he does to me. It's this vicious circle of bullshit we find ourselves in. And he takes the longevity, but Kip's like, no, he's dying. But go ahead. Like, I'm a right bastard, but doing this to this guy, yeah. And still trying to walk away with the longevity. But for Cliff, it's like, why do I have to be more, like, brought down by, like, morals? Like, why do I have to be, like, you know, he can be an immoral asshole sometimes, but it's like, he still has a conscience. It's like, why do I have to be eaten up by my morals and my conscience? Like, why can't I just be an asshole and that be okay? It's like, well, you can be an asshole, but not this particular type of asshole. So he leaves the longevity so that the chief can live. And it's just like, right, he walked away without the longevity in his case either. So then we had Laura, who snuck in and dealt with the chief. Now, part of me was thinking to myself, well, with Laura, like, when the chief was kind of like, right, you don't need to be here at the bureau, you have no place or whatever, I see your ambition and how much you've compromised yourself, that I was like, oh, Laura might remember this conversation, but it's like, right, it's her future self telling her that, but she didn't realize it was Niles. But then she was like, I knew something was up, you weren't acting like yourself. So Laura reveals her. I thought she was going to pretend to be someone else, but no, she revealed herself as like, nope, this is me. And she's like, well, how do you prove that you really are her from the future? And it's like, by telling her one thing she would never tell anyone else. It's like, do you remember what happened at 14? Your parents led the mob that chased after you when you revealed your abilities. And Laura's like, sorry, I had to do it. Like, that was that was the one thing I could say that would prove to you that I am you. Because I'm assuming like Laura's never told anyone that. Like, is that once again, do forgive my shitty memory, but like, isn't that the first time Laura's ever openly talked about it? I don't remember that coming up last season or the first part of this season, but maybe I'm misremembering. I'm like, I don't remember that, but maybe it came up. And it is this situation where, like, once again, everyone's kind of confronting a lot of their issues. It's like, once again, that's the nature of the series anyway. But for Laura, it's like everything she resents about herself is there in front of her personified. It's like, no. You want to delude yourself. Like, you are such a good con artist. You've lied to everyone, including yourself. You want to believe that you're a good person, but we're not. The fact of the matter is, I'm here to kind of help out my friends because they have made me a better person. But the fact of the matter is, I'm still not fully there yet. But you, definitely not. I'm doing all of this to make up for all the shit that we did. It's like, you want to sit here and justify it to yourself that you're a good person, but you're not. You're lying to yourself, to the point she literally picked up that weapon stamp and started bashing herself in the head, like herself back then in the head, saying like, you're the weapon. But she's like, no, I don't deserve this. I'm a good person. It's like, no, you don't. It's like, once again, all her rage towards herself. It's like realizing like how little, because even she admits like, I'm not that much better. Even with everything I've been through last season and this season, I'm still not that much better than you. We're still that same monster. And it's like, and it's just the audacity of me back then thinking I'm a good person, lying to myself. It's like, I am you can't lie to me type of situation. And it's like, what does that mean for Laura? Like, will she eventually forget that? Like, what does that mean for our Laura? Like, you know, because it's like, how do you... Because at least Niles never saw Laura knock him out. That happened behind his back. But, like, what happens to this Laura? Like, carrying... Because that means... Because in her mind, she kind of does the same thing that Niles did. That's why I was talking about the parallels where the Niles that Cliff was talking to, where it's like, hey, you are... You're you, sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to become you. That's just your opinion. It's kind of what the 1940-something Laura said. And, you know, just like Niles was saying, like, oh, maybe it will happen or maybe it won't. It's like, no, I'm living proof that it does happen, you know? And eventually you had your memory wiped because, once again, Kip was like, having knowledge of the future is too dangerous. So Laura probably does remember that. That probably did happen. It probably always did. And she does go on her time-traveling adventures and did lose her memory. So maybe some of that memory never came back the moment, like she got her memories back. Or, you know, maybe this is the start of the loop. So, but she'll try to justify, but like, no. I'm not going to be her. I won't be her. And she still goes down the route that she does. I'm assuming that's what it is. At least the other time loops kind of like close themselves because it's like, right, Niles had his memory wiped in the case with Cliff and the one with Jane. So there's that. And then finally we had everything with Vic. He ends up getting in contact with Derek. I'm like, oh, of course you would. But it turns out it's not Derek present day, it's Derek at some point in the future. Can't be that far in the future because Derek doesn't look much older, but hey, black don't crack, so who knows how far in the future it is. But it's like, yeah, he's in the middle of class, and Vic kind of learns a little bit about his future, that it's like, okay, one of the main people helping out is Joy, and it's like, well, how does this kid know about like the large probability of like these time portals and stuff? It's like, well, because you told her. It's like, oh, so he takes from this experience and will eventually teach some kids, but then it's also because he was inspired by what his future self did. Once again, it being a full loop. His loop seems to be the most one that is going to continue uninterrupted, whereas everyone else's loops seem like there's at least a rub to their loops of like, all right, someone's memory getting wiped and them not remembering. Obviously, the negative spirit will remember everything, but obviously Larry was possessed at the time, so he wouldn't know. So that saves you having to worry about that. And Laura might justify that as like some nightmare and not think it's real. So, and once again, the chief in that particular time never saw it. And like I said, the chief's memory was wiped with both Cliff and Jane. So, and obviously, like, you have Vic being a little reluctant to trust, like, how can I trust this kid's math? And she's like, if you want to waste time, but then Vic of that time shows up, it's like, no, like, We don't have to worry about it. Like, I've already checked our math. It's like, meaning it all works out in the end. So once again, just funny how that all works. But it's like, yeah, this is Vic's legacy, wanting to be a giving back, being the hero in the superhero capacity, but also helping on a more community-based level of kind of inspiring and being there to teach the next generation as well. That's also going to be part of his legacy. So I'm assuming that's going to be, once again, we have no idea what the Doom Patrol situation is going to look like at the end of this series, but that could just be them going their separate ways. But when it's all said and done, it's like, right, well, we didn't get the our longevity back, but who cares? The fact of the matter is, we got to go back for Rita's sake. We'll take out Immortus. We'll face the butts. And Cliff is like, hell, I'm going to hell anyway, so might as well drag some of these mother effers down with me. So let's go back and let's put it into this. And that's where everything stands. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. The next episode is the series finale. It feels so weird. Like, I mean, because so much DC television is ending. You know, because obviously we got the news recently that the next season, it was always kind of like, is it and will it not be? It is confirmed that the next season of Superman and Lois will be the end, and like so much of the live action stuff. And we also don't know how long Harley Quinn's going to go on, the animated Harley Quinn series. Like, will it get at least one more season? I don't know if that's been confirmed. Even I haven't checked on that. I have to check on that. There's also the Kite Man spinoff, but it's like so much DC television we've come to know so far over the past 11 years now, it's going to be potentially coming to an end, at least on the live action front. So it's like, it's crazy to, you know, it's so bittersweet because it's just like, I'm so excited to see how this ends, but I'm also sad to see it end, you know, especially under these circumstances, but I'm still excited. I love Titans ending. You can feel however you want to about it, but I loved it. And so I'm excited to see how Doom Patrol goes out swinging, because you know it will, and it's just going to be a wild finale, I'm sure. And so I'm excited to see how this weird fucking show comes to an end. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good